What's up, guys? We're here in the Sunova factory, here with Bert, and we're going to talk about some surfboards today.
Cool. All right. So who's asking who what questions?
Well, what have we got here?
All right. Well, what we've got here is we have the Londonator model. Now, we're not actually at the point where these are available in shops yet, but of course I'm working with you, and that's what your boards are called. So we got to a point where we sort of figured out that around about 5'11", 19 and a quarter was about your size for small surf.
Yep.
You know, you're like 73, 74, 75 kilo, give or take.
Yep.
And these dimensions were working for you over in Portugal. So we had to go a little narrower and a little longer than the early ones. And then even with the 5'11", you did mention that it started to feel a little skaty when there was a bit of punch in it. So this is pretty much what we've come through, and this is your all-round small wave board. Handles a range of conditions. We've just got a very clean outline, very typical of a high-performance board, subtle little bump, rounded pin. Now, the interesting thing is, so you've found a shape that's working for you.
Yep.
And then we've done little increments of improvement since then. Like at one stage, you were having a little bit of an issue with catching the rail around here. We realised it wasn't the rail shape, but then we just had to get your rocker out of the way. I think we took the concave out of the nose again to make sure that this front rail was a little higher out of the water as you come around for a turn. You just don't want to dig that rail. Then the other thing we actually did too is we managed to shape the rail in such a way that we got like a little bit of a bevel almost. So when you're coming back off the top in that manoeuvre, it just helps keep the rail out of the water. So, yeah, shape-wise, and they're nice and refined and thin. But when I sent you boards, I gave you some subtle construction variations because we have the full wood rail. But then we also have the rail with the blue foam. Okay, so we call this construction Morph Flex, M-O-R-P-H-L-E-X, and essentially it morphs and it bends, but it also has more flex. And the reason it has more flex is we're removing a piece of wood and we're replacing it with a piece of foam. So if you get the wood and you bend it, it's a little bit harder to bend, but then when it sprints back, it has more catapult effect. The foam, it's going to be a bit more rubbery and easier to bend. So literally the blue foam makes the board have a bit more of a softer flex. So it works a lot better in really small soft waves. But we found with you, interesting, was that you generate a lot of your own power when you surf. You know, you're very fast, very agile. You make your own speed.
Overbending the full boards, actually.
Correct, right. So what you found is when you rode the full wood, you found that it gave you more kick or more spring or more projection out of turns because you physically have the power. Once you squat, when you extend your legs, you're flexing the board, and then the extra wood gives a lot more back. So we figured out that that's your preferred rail or stringer material, because in our boards, this line here, we don't have a stringer down the middle like conventional boards, right? Our stringer runs around the rail line. And so basically by defining that, that's how much wood you like, that density, this thickness, that's kind of like how much stringer wood you like to ride compared to a normal board.
Yeah, this is pretty much my magic board for everyday conditions. And actually this one, Bert did something special as well. He threw this Polonia skin onto this board. I noticed that he made me a Polonia board, and I really liked some of the effects where the skin was laid in the board and the pressure dings, all that kind of stuff, how tough it was. And
it's okay, so the balsa's lighter, but it's also a bit softer, so the balsa's a little bit more susceptible to like a nail or a rock or something sharp.
Exactly.
The Polonia is really hard, and you can hit it with scissors and rocks, and it's got a bit more flex. And it's also, in my opinion, has a slightly toned down rebound.
Almost feels more like a PU. The old Polonia board you made me felt like a bit too much softness, like it was sucking away energy, you know? Which kind of what a PU does, kind of kills your energy. It's used for sound editing.
Well, it's also, that's correct. It's an insulation material to stop the transfer of energy.
And we decided to throw some Polonia decks on a couple boards and some bottom skins on another one we'll show you.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see what it would do. So I'm really interested to try this. As the first board that we've made this way. And
correct, because the previous Polonia board that I built for you had the carbon rails.
Yep.
And the carbon's nice. Me personally, I like the wood more. I like the feel, the way it flexes. It flexes like, I don't know, like almost like it's a softer, more even, predictable, reliable flex.
Yep.
Even though carbon will still flex, when it springs back, it tends to spring back so quickly you're not ready for it.
Yep.
It tends to pick up every little bump. Whereas with the wood, it still flexes, but it springs back at just a nice rate, and it just feels smoother under your feet. That's what I have to say.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's quickly pull another one out.
All right, guys. So this is my Londonator 6.0 all-rounder.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this one?
All right, so what was happening here was that over the summer in Portugal, you were on your 511, 9.25, and it was great. Good small weight board. In fact, we've been using it here in Thailand. We've been absolutely ripping on it. I think we'll have a talk about it later because it's in the car now. So we'll go down the beach and discuss that one. But you've got your good 511 all-rounder small weight board, and then you were sort of saying, oh, Bert, it feels too loose. It's going vertical a bit easy. I can't push it hard enough. It's maybe drifting a bit in the lip, you know, because through the winter you are surfing some pretty grumpy, juicy waves, right? I mean, I freak out sometimes when you post videos, man. I'm like, oh no, don't break it.
Poor boards, treat them nicely.
So what we did with this one is we just went, okay, we went 511, we went 6.0, we went 1 inch longer, we went a 1/4 inch narrower. So instead of 511, 9.25, we went 6.0, 19. It's exactly the same board, exactly the same volume, exactly the same surface area. The difference is, by going a little bit longer and a little bit narrower, everything just gets a little straighter. And so what that means is when you're surfing in a bit more juice and you put it on rail, you just got a slightly longer rail line that you can drive into. You can really push it harder before it pops and slides.
Yeah, I'd say this is like my go-to board as soon as the conditions start to get a little bit punchy. The 511 is my everyday board, and as soon as we get some waves with a bit more power, a bit more punch, or even a point break or something, I'd go straight to the 6.0, and it's just like my 511, but I can push it a bit harder, surf it a bit more aggressively, put it into a bit of a thicker wave, and it feels really good.
Yeah, so that's it. And then again, we found that you really, we've got the rails nice and low. Like when you pick these up, I mean, most people would pick it up and, oh wow, that's just way too thin.
Yep.
But it's relative to the density of the wood.
And also, you got to tell people a little bit about the difference in Sunova construction, because if you were shaping me a PU,
it would not be this shape.
Make this rail.
It would not be this shape. No, correct. Yeah, so that's the thing. So we do have the construction of the Sunova gives it very unique performance characteristics. It's like you have a hollow core material, which is almost like marshmallow, super light EPS. And then what we do is we construct around the outside a shell of balsa wood, like a skin that just wraps around the board. So bottom skin's a little bit thinner, slightly lower density. So when you press the bottom, you can almost feel this squishiness, right? And that gives it a real cushion, smooth ride, because when you hit chops, it just dampens the chop.
I mean, if you think about it, I kind of toe in on my 6.0 at Nazare when it's pretty bumpy. It's like a little shock absorber. You don't even really feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've ridden a 5 kilo toe board and got more bumps.
Yeah. So then what we do is we have 1/2 inch of wood in the rail, which is like your stringer material, but it runs around the outline, and there's a whole discussion about that and how it actually performs and what the differences are. There'll be another video. The deck skin, what we do for the deck is we run a higher density, thicker balsa, plus we have these I-beams or these grooves in the wood that go right through. So there's actually a layer of glass under the wood, then you have the wood, and then you have more glass, and then these grooves run through the wood and connect the glass under to the glass over, and that just gives the whole deck skin a lot of structure, a lot of stiffness. So when the rider's stomping here, his energy is transferring right through the whole deck and out to the rails. And the rails are the kicker, because that's where you're getting your spring back and your performance from. but the rails engage, and again, that's another whole discussion. FCS1, high density foam inserts inside. The beauty
This is actually a question I get a lot, because I was always a futures guy in PU boards. I liked the stiffness of the futures better.
Yeah.
And the FCS always felt a bit floppy in regular boards for me.
Yes.
And when Bert said, "Oh, I want to do your boards in FCS1," I was really skeptical. Like, really? Are we going back in time here or something? And he sent me 2 boards in the beginning. He sent me one with futures and one with FCS.
Just to sort of prove the point here. So I sent you exactly the same board. And yeah, tell me what you say. Tell me what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, I instantly felt a difference. The futures board felt really stiff, and the FCS board just had a kind of spring back and really nice, I'd say, maneuverability to it that the futures fin board didn't have, like liveliness almost, you know? And after that, I was pretty much convinced and told Bert, all right, we're going to go FCS1. I haven't had a problem with it. A lot of people ask me questions like, oh, why are you riding FCS1? And I tell them, in this board, it works better.
Yeah, that's it. And the main reason is this, right? If you, damn it, I mean, we're right here in the factory. I could have a piece of wood. All right, you're going to have to pretend there's a piece of wood in my hand. Okay, so let's say I've got a nice long thin stick, a nice piece of wood, right? I can bend it.
Yep.
And as I grab the ends and bend it, it's going to have one even curve, like a bow.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if I was to get a futures fin box and tape it, go, right, there's a box, that represents the front box. Put another futures box here, that represents the tail box.
Yep.
Right? Now I bend it. Now what happens? Straight, kink, straight. Yep. So often, futures boards, they break here or they break here. What happens is you're stiffening up the whole tail, right? And when the board's stiff, it doesn't flex. And if it doesn't flex, it doesn't spring back. And that's the key. So with the FCS, what it means is the 2 tabs go in, there's high density inserts inside, but the board can flex under. So what ends up happening, if I can just slide you back here a bit, London, a whole tail section, I mean, I'm moving that at least half an inch, 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so you get a more of an even flex through the tail. So when you load it into the pocket, it just fits in better.
Yep.
And it's just a smoother ride. And
the whole point of riding a Sunova is to take advantage of the flex, because these boards, that's what they offer you the most, is they carry flex and pop through them unlike any other conventional technology. So if you're going to put a futures box in it, you're kind of going to take away from the text. I mean, these guys, they can put any feed box you want. They can put FCS2, they can put futures. I'm telling people, really go for it with the FCS1. It's the way to go. You feel a difference, the board will be that much better, and you'll absolutely love it and never want anything else.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about the construction, but we will make a few more vids that are a little bit more specific. But and then what about the durability, London? How have you gone there? I mean, you've been, I think, what is it now? You've been on our boards now for about 18 months, right? Since the end of 22?
Yep.
No, 23, sorry. Yeah, because we sort of work all of 24 together. Yeah, so about November 23, I think, when we got you on some boards. So it's been about 18 months now. I mean, when you first introduced yourself, you were like, oh, I do break a lot of boards. So
I didn't tell Bert in the beginning quite how many, because if we do that, most surfboard shapers will try and run away with it.
Well, I wasn't daunted.
On regular technology boards, I mean, for a high performance PU board, it has to be glass really thin. And with the waves we have in Portugal, I was breaking almost, 17 boards a month at Super Tubas if there was a good swell. And that's like pretty much unsustainable, And since I've been on Sunova, I've only broken 1 board in half. And that's like the first time in my life that I've ever had a board that is like blasted. Almost all the boards Bert has made me, except the one that I broke in half, they're still 100% usable. And the amount of beating I throw on these boards, I mean, I'm in the water every day, all day. And if it was a regular board, they wouldn't be lasting me more than 2 weeks,
No, that's it, and that was the thing, and that's one of the reasons I developed these boards all the way years ago. I mean, myself being a real big guy, I would destroy normal boards. So part of it was I wanted a bit more durability. So yeah, that was it. So I mean, I went from. So you were saying you would sat maybe up to 17 boards in a month. I know you were telling me like 30 boards a year is not uncommon.
Yeah.
And I know in 18 months you've broken one Sunova where you've snapped it. I know you creased one nose.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I know my statistics myself. So I used to average, before I rode this construction, I just rode normal PU. I used to average 3 snaps a year. So basically, over a 10-year period, I snapped 30 boards.
Yeah.
Then once I started riding these, I think it worked out that over a 10-year period, I snapped like 3 boards. So I went from snapping 3 boards a year to roughly snapping 1 board every 3 years.
And you were surfing in heavyweight?
Western Australia, real
That's
thick, heavy stuff. Correct. So, I mean, you snap your board just paddling out over there. If you're in the wrong spot, that's easy. So yeah, so my snap ratio, and I guarantee you, on paper, on statistics, on past statistics, these boards are minimum 10 times stronger. They'll outlast any normal board 10 times over, all day long. And that's a fact. And we have the stats, years and years of stats. So, and then London's just backed that up as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's grab another board, eh?
Yeah, so look, what's happened is we figured out that there's a shape that's really working for London. And what we're doing now is we're sort of chasing down little subtle variations in performance that come from the materials, right? We're sort of, we mentioned before that London had a board with a Polonia deck. He kind of liked the feel of it. I personally feel that the Polonia boards have a slight, subtle delayed reaction, and so they're more suited to maybe bigger wave boards where you want the board to feel a bit more solid under your feet, and also too, just sometimes in real small waves, you're really looking for that quick, spontaneous, quick spring.
Yep.
And I personally feel the Polonia doesn't have that. So anyway, but London liked it, so he says, come on, Bert, can't you make me one that's got Polonia bottom skin as well? And I was going to, at first, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it, but we did it anyway, okay? And the thing is, it's just like, so here we got a board, it has the wooden rail with balsa, and then we have a Polonia top and bottom skin, and really, what we're trying to feel out is the subtle little nuances in spring and the timing of the flex and so on. So we literally have 5 identical boards here, and they all have a little subtle variation in the materials that we've used and how they're laid up, but they're all identical shape and they're all identical weight.
Yep.
And we're just working with the materials to get the right feel.
My idea with this, because the first full Polonia board that he made, what I felt is, because it kind of absorbs energy. When you did a really big re-entry off the lip and you land in that flat spot, it kind of give you a bit more cushion than the other ones. Because the other ones
the parachute drop as well.
React, go. And sometimes that's great.
When you get blasted out of the lip, you mean?
Yes. And sometimes that's great if you want to pass a section.
Yeah.
But other times, if it's really ugly thick surf, you just want to have a. We had a little bit of a camera issue.
That's
GoPro
right.
overheated and Thailand's heat. We were talking about how Bert made me a full Polonia board, and I liked the fact that when you came off the lip on a really thick section, you had almost like a marshmallow cushioning effect. You didn't have that same reaction as a regular Sunova, and that brings advantages for certain big chunky conditions.
Yes, and that's now I remember where we were at. So what the Polonia does is, because it has a slightly subtle delayed reaction, as you put it into the lip, and like you say, with the balsa, full balsa boards, they're almost overreactive. Sometimes you can hit a very thick lip and you'll hit it, and the board will flex and just want to spring you and project you and just shoot you off into orbit. Whereas when the board's a little bit deader, when you hit it, it sort of sticks there and enables you to just come around and fall down with the lip. You're not getting blasted off into space.
Yep.
And that's what you were feeling.
And that's kind of like my idea where it came in, where I didn't want a full Polonia board. I felt it was just too dead unless the conditions are really solid. So I actually asked Bert to make me my same 6.0 and throw me a Polonia bottom and deck skin, but with the wooden rails. And my idea is this board's going to have a nice amount of pop in bigger surf, but it's going to have a bit of that cushioning effect. So I'll be able to push it into bigger, thicker sections, where the other board, I would land and would kind of want to spring off again. It might be hard to land.
Yeah.
Or this board, I might get a little bit more cushioning effect, and I'd probably be a board of choice for chunky, ugly, thick closeouts,
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean now. I remember having a good shortboard years back, and I'd ridden it for 6 or 7 years, and it got to the point where the whole deck had a little bit of a sponginess to it almost.
Yep.
But it turned out you could make the craziest free fall floater parachute drops. You could be on a double overhead, really thick wave, do a floater and literally just fall and land and it'd have a nice cushioned landing, and that's the type of effect that this board should have.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, yeah, that'll do it.